Thank you, dude. Oh, I didn't know that either. That makes sense. But don't you think this is a strong play, just to have a whole pot of coffee? We're live.
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah.
If you're going to have coffee, you should have all of it.
Always.
Thank you very much.
Let me know if you need anything else.
All right.
Are we live?
We're live.
We are live. Let me post this. Let's do this. Hey gang, Westbuck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020. We're like 4 days away from my birthday. T, what'd you get me?
Oh man, all kinds of stuff. But you're not
Like
here.
lots of things?
Yeah, you're not here to get it. So
How many things do you think you got me?
that whole
Like if
room.
you just had to, really?
Yeah, the whole room's pretty well full over there.
That's awesome. Are they wrapped?
No, I don't do
Oh,
wrapping. Yeah.
Are you going to hire someone to wrap them? Or?
I do more of the, walk someone in with their eyes closed and then bam.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm big. Little known fact, I used to work at the Buckle, the clothing store, right?
Yeah.
So I was supremely good at wrapping presents. Like that was my favorite thing at because we would have contests, like who could wrap a pair of jeans the quickest.
Yeah.
And geez,
I was in a wrap contest once too.
with Eminem.
Yeah,
dude, I tell you what, man. I don't miss working at the Buckle.
Like,
that was a bad job. That was a bad job. I remember one time getting like crucified, massively lectured by the manager of the store because my jeans, the jeans that I was wearing to work didn't match like the rest of my outfit or whatever. And I'm like, well, dude, I just left Buck Brothers. I got to wear work jeans there. I got, I got to wear work attire at the repair shop. And then I come straight here. And I was wearing like carpenter jeans.
Mm-hmm.
These were popular at one point in time. Okay.
Oh yeah, they were. Yeah.
So I was wearing carpenter jeans with like a button down t-shirt and they were having no part, or a button down shirt. And dude, don't ever work at the Buckle.
You'd like walk in those stores and the guys that are working there and the girls or whatever, you could see they had tags on their jeans. Like they're wearing the clothes off the rack.
You had to. If you didn't wear a store that was sold in there or wear store clothes to work that were sold at the store, they would like set you on fire. And you had to be wearing a ring, a bracelet, a necklace. Yeah, you did. You had to wear all this stuff. It was the wildest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I want a discount, I mean, that's
literally why I worked
at that point.
Yeah, because I wanted to try to get a good deal on my Doc Marten boots. What's up, Brent? What's going on, guys? I hope everybody's doing well. Whale of a week here in the sport of drag racing. Whale of a couple of days. We love having you guys. We love continuing the drag racing conversation every Wednesday afternoon with all of our extended family and friends. Would encourage you guys, if you have a question, if there's anything that you want to talk about, throw it into the comments, and Murder Tundra will throw it in front of me and we will talk about drag racing, man. It's my favorite thing to do. Do you think that running teens and X275 is the ultimate death of the class? Hey, Thomas Myers, what's going on, buddy? I hope you're doing well. You actually live right down the road from me now. I don't know if you know this, but I've relocated to Texas. I'm here to take over. So decided
You also missed the question.
Yeah, the X275 thing, such is the curse of heads-up drag racing. Can anyone agree, right? These things are so difficult, and I do not at all envy the position that our friend John Sears finds himself in so frequently. It's such a difficult thing to try to maintain the illusion of parity in these classes. And X275 is obviously one of the most controversial things we've seen the last few years. I think that has served its popularity. I think that's been a big part of why everybody's so excited about it and why there's so much participation. It's just always in the news. It's the subject. It's the talk of conversation so frequently. I don't know personally how I think it's very impressive to see these cars, very heavy, 275 series radial tire, going 14s. It's massively impressive. I would argue that it's amongst the most impressive cars in all of drag racing. my fear is that I just don't think that's what the class was designed for or intended for. I don't know that anybody really wanted it. I mean, it wasn't that long ago we were like jumping up and down about 430s and 440s. So I kind of struggle to wrap my head around where we're at currently. And I don't think it's great. I don't think it's a fantastic place for the class to be. We talk a lot about the dream dying and how important it is to keep that dream alive. And I think when the performance reaches the low fours and that into the threes, or knowing that that's potentially possible, it just extinguishes the dream for some people. And I'm not saying for everybody. There's obviously a class of people that see that and go, oh, I want some of that. They have the financial wherewithal and the resources to do so, and they do it. But I always looked at X275. Like, if you want to go to Ducks races and you don't want to jump into Pro 275 now, or RVW, that was a great way to go be part of the show, one of the headlining classes, but not necessarily have to have a $200,000-$300,000 race car to do it. It's trending the wrong direction, in my opinion, right now. But it's just, hey, man, they've got a lot of interest. They've got a lot of people fired up about it. I think as much as John Sears likely hates all the drama and the phone calls or whatever, you have to admit that it's amongst the most talked about classes in all of drag racing, and it's because of all that controversy. And I think when you have so many different engine combinations and so many different weights and all these variations, this is what it takes. It takes a living rule book. And I think John Sears is doing his absolute best to deliver that, man. And Brent Sansucci is actually saying this in the comments right now, is that money will always rule any heads-up drag racing class. And that's basically the truth. I mean, I think early on, there is an opportunity for ingenuity and innovation to level the playing field. But over the long haul, he who has the deepest pockets typically wins when it comes to any type of heads-up drag racing, man. It's the way it is. It's the way it is, man. Dan Ferguson is actually making a very, very solid point. And I want to encourage everybody, please, real quick, remember to like this, share it, spread the good word, get people watching, get everybody talking about drag racing. This is something that our sport lacks. You look at football, you look at basketball, you look at the UFC, you look at even soccer. You go turn on your TV right now to ESPN or Fox Sports, and guess what? There are people talking about those sports, keeping the conversation going, right? There was a game yesterday. There's a game tomorrow. There's a game tonight. We have to continue that conversation. We have to be talking about that stuff. I encourage you guys, go live, click share, involve yourself in this, comment. It's really, really, really what the sport of drag racing needs, in my opinion, more so than anything else right now, is just this constant conversation. And I appreciate everybody that tunes in every week and watches and has this big time conversation with us. We appreciate it a lot. So remember to click like, click share. But Dan Ferguson, going back to the comments, he's identifying something that I think is actually, this is a touchy subject, but I do think he's hit the nail on the head, that track prep has come so far in the last few years, the last decade, that I think that that's one place that we can point to immediately that's really allowed these things to happen. There's no chance that we're going to see 350 with a 5 out of Stevie Jackson's Shadow 2.0 Radio versus the World Camaro this past weekend in Virginia without the highest possible level of track prep. And I think it's fantastic. It produces these big numbers. It produces these jaw-dropping happenings. But at the same time, it is a slippery slope. And I think there's a couple of things that happen. One that I found problematic is that racers become accustomed to that level of traction, to that quality of a race surface. And it's tough because other promoters struggle that don't have either the facility or the resources to put that much glue on it or to take that level of care of the racing surface. So it's really tough. And that's why we see a handful of events that produce the records. I mean, that's just literally what it is. There's a handful of these events, a handful of times of year that these things can happen, man. And it's just, I definitely think we can all point to track prep as something that doesn't help, right? That doesn't help. So it's great in a lot of ways. It's fantastic, but I'm not, I saw Matt Plotkin in here. What's up, buddy? Hope you're doing well. And I'm not completely sold on just going full no prep racing across the board, but I do think there are some things we can learn from the no prep scene, and that's that very rarely does the fastest car win over there, right? Because it's more about navigating that outlaw 8th mile with no glue, right? Very little rubber buildup. It's a tough deal, and it really is the ultimate leveler of the playing fields, because you can go out there with the baddest stuff in the world, and you've got to get it down a nitty gritty, sometimes an etched concrete, industrial area, sometimes it's asphalt, whatever. You've got to get down this gnarly racing surface, and that really does narrow the gap between the haves and the have-nots, which is extremely wide when you roll into Virginia Motorsports Park and the best prep racing surface on the planet Earth. The guys that have it to let it all hang out and have the manpower, the resources, et cetera, to go kick the rods out of it and put another bullet in it, or really run it hard just in general, that's hard to overcome with ingenuity. It's hard to overcome with big ideas or thinking outside of the box, man. And, Brent is actually touching as well on air. When you have the conditions like that a couple times a year or whatever, and I think that's where records are supposed to come from, personally. I do think we get insane with, if you guys remember a few years ago, there was kind of this notion that if a record wasn't set at your race, it didn't happen. I hate that. It's something that I despise with every ounce of my body, because if you want a land speed record, if that's all you care about is blowing down the scoreboard and setting records, man, go to Bonneville, hit them salt flats, right? Drag racing is about side-by-side competition. First one to the finish line wins. And when the universe presents us an opportunity to set a record, when all the stars and moon align, absolutely, it's fantastic. It's the icing on the sundae. But the bulk of our product, the focus of our existence, is side-by-side competition on the drag strip. And I think that what shows up on the scoreboards is a secondary happening. Wes says, James Kraft, what's up, my friend? Monday morning racer himself. Shout out to my buddy James and the whole team at Strut Masters. James does a great job doing exactly what we preach about all the time, just creating great content for the sport of drag racing. Wes, for all the progress in drag racing, why does the gasser movement have so much popularity, such as the Southeast Gassers Association? It can't just be a nostalgia trip. Well, it's funny, because I do think that in this hyper digital, hyper teched out world we live in, people love them some nostalgia. I really do. I think people, you'll notice that if you pay attention, vinyl records are back real big. It's crazy, right? It's just, I think people do enjoy these momentary trips back in time. I think personally, they've done a fantastic job of taking those events to tracks that work really well. It's that classic big wedding, small church. That's one of the things that they're doing extremely well. They're not taking that show to ZMAX, right? They're not taking that show to VMP. They're taking it to tracks that fit the brand, fit the show. They can pack it full of people, and then this is what happens. People are talking about it because it's at capacity. There's thousands of people there, and that's one of the tough things that happens in drag racing. Is there's some really good events that happen at huge facilities, and you can put 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people in some of these facilities, and it looked like a smattering. It looked not impressive because they're designed to hold 10, 15, 20, 30,000 people. So I think one of the things that Quayne and the whole gang at the Southeast Gassers have done a great job of doing is taking that wedding to small churches that make it appear to be a 5-alarm fire. I do think that they've done a great job of getting buy-in from their participants, people that are willing to play the part, right? They go out there, they're wearing the old school crew uniforms. Some of them dress all in white. You've got guys that you got the backup girls. They're committed to it. And I honestly think that commitment to entertainment is really probably the secret sauce of the Southeast Gassers, is that while there's a competition element, while there is all that, and people are serious about it, I'm not making light of it or light of the competition, the competitive environment that exists there, but they're committed to put on a show, man. They're doing the burnouts, they're doing the dry hops, they're rowing gears. They're wearing open face helmets that, like I said, the backup girls, the crew uniforms, the whole thing's on brand, right? They're committed to the entertainment aspect of it. And I think that's really important. I think that's a big part of their success. That's my personal opinion. A little bit of trip back in time, going to parts of the countries that parts of the country, the United States that speak that language is really smart as well. I saw someone mention the Bakersfield March Meat, another thing. Like it's something that resonates that part of the country. Nitro is in people's veins. Car culture is alive and well out there on the West Coast. So I think that's a big part of it, man.
I agree. We've got several people asking about the Coke and Pepsi deal, or Coke asking if you like Pepsi, and
well, here's a little known secret. My favorite. Okay, let's do top 5 sodas all time right now. Not in no politics. Like you hit me with your top 5 sodas all time.
I like Mountain Dew. That'd be my number 1.
Okay.
Coke.
Red Coke, like full flavor Coke.
Probably cherry Coke, actually. Yeah. And then wild cherry Pepsi's good too.
Okay.
Sprite, Fresco with my vodka.
That's a shout out to Mark Russo. That's your top 5. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now. Diet Wild Cherry Pepsi. Greatest soda. Greatest soda of all time. Number one. That's not up for debate. I'm anxious for people to try to debate it. Diet Wild Cherry Pepsi is number 1 soda all time. All time. Number 2 soda. Ready? Diet Mountain Dew Fountain from Taco Bell.
Oh, I agree. Yep. That's good.
Nowhere else is it the same. But Fountain Diet Mountain Dew from Taco Bell is untouchable. Near untouchable, right? Yeah. 3. Sun-Kissed Orange in a can. Not diet, but Sun-Kissed Orange in a can will change your program. It will. You're having a bad day, you go crack open an ice-cold Sun-Kissed Orange, and it's going to change the program for you. You're going to turn that frown upside down, brother. So keep that in your back pocket. You having a rough day?
You remember Jolt?
Oh, Jolt Cola.
It's like the original Red Bull.
Do you remember tasting like the grit of sugar?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh, okay. 4th, I'm going to go Barks root beer in a can.
That's good.
This is definitely top 4 for sure. And then number 5. What would be my number 5? Oh, Dr. Pepper. Though in a can. You don't like Dr. Pepper?
I don't. No.
You need your head examined.
Oh, I hate it.
I'm telling you right now, Dr. Pepper. That was a solid top 5. I challenge anyone to. I challenge anybody that's the top 5 greatest sodas of all time.
I didn't realize you were picking like where they're coming from.
Because I'm serious about this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, but you didn't say Mellow Yellow.
No, I didn't say Mellow Yellow because Mellow Yellow tastes like shit. It's horrible. It is. It's bad. I'm glad this has all come out because personally, I'm not a big fan of Mellow Yellow. I never really believed in it. Personally, I felt personally slighted because if Coca-Cola really wanted to get aggressive about their involvement in drag racing, it needed to be red and white. It needed to be Coca-Cola. We needed a big dance partner. The sport of drag racing needed a big dance partner. You know what I'm saying? There should have been someone involved who had the foresight to go, this relationship, it needs legitimacy. Drag racing needed a big time dance partner. We need a Coca-Cola. We need a Red Bull. We need a Monster. We need a Camping World. We need someone who's going to take some ownership, who's going to get excited about it and help the status of drag racing. And I felt whenever, as excited as everybody was about the Mellow Yellow deal, I instantaneously thought, man, this is like a second tier soda. We don't need associated with a second tier soda. We need associated with a number 1. We need top of the deal, right? What is it called, JT? The booze what is it called? Top shelf.
Top shelf.
We needed a top shelf premium partner. Drag racing, I mean, roll through the pits of a drag race and you're going to see women carrying Louis Vuitton purses, right? You're going to see guys in Gucci slides. I mean, especially at the NHRA level, you talk about professional drag racing. These are high. I mean, we need Rolex as a sponsor. Everybody in the pro pits has a Rolex. Every one of them, right? I mean, those we need a big time dance partner. That's what the sport of drag racing needs above all else right now. NHRA needs a big time dance partner, somebody who's going to come in, take some ownership, right? Show some pride. I would get frustrated. I never felt like I saw the follow through, the follow through and activation that's really necessary to propel one of these deals. I need to see. I needed to see Coca-Cola buying billboards and putting J.R. Todd on them, right? I need to see Coca-Cola running commercials with these people in them, not just commercials that are going to show on our show, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about using these big brands to. It could be, if we could team up with some of these people, somebody that would show a little bit of ownership, who would take some ownership, it could help so much. But obviously, big news here in the sport of drag racing that Coca-Cola and NHRA are involved in some sort of legal tiff. Obviously, I tried to dig into this a little bit and find out who was, when this whole thing started to happen. If you read into the legal documentation, you'll find that Coca-Cola has been trying to get out of this deal for like a year, which is a little bit surprising. They tried to do that, tried to get out of the agreement last year. NHRA apparently went to their legal department, said no chance, you can't get out of it. You're contractually obligated, and so we carried forward. The NHRA rolled into 2020. Obviously, COVID and all this hasn't helped. I do think everybody's really vilifying Coca-Cola, and I hate to see it a little bit. Because obviously they've been good to the NHRA for a long time. They've been great. I think all of us owe the Coca-Cola, Mellow Yellow, Full Throttle, Powerade, all these different Coca-Cola owned brands that have been involved with the sport of drag racing. We all owe them a debt of gratitude. I hate to see it end like this. This isn't good for anybody, right? It's that's what I hate about it, is because when it reaches this point, a legal dispute, lawsuits, the only people that win are those lawyers, really. People start, it's billable hours at this point, and it's a really tough deal to have happen or to see play out so publicly, because I don't think there's going to be someone come out smelling like a rose on this deal. I think it's a loser for all parties, and tough. And based on, a lot of, if you Google any sort of news revolving Coca-Cola, you'll see massive layoffs, backing out of contracts left and right. So it's a tough deal. I hate it for the sport of drag racing. I hate that the NHRA is being thrust into this position at this moment in time. You couldn't ask for worse timing, in my opinion. But I will say necessity is the mother of all invention. And it is probably good for the NHRA to find themselves in a situation where it's do or die. It's time to make something happen. It's time to think outside of the box. It's time to try new things. It's time to build relationships, and I'm very anxious to see what happens next. I did hear that this thing that happened with Camping World yesterday. Yeah. In case you missed it, what's his name? Marcus Lemonis, that's the CEO of Camping World, literally posted on Twitter, just out of the clear blue, "Hey, at NHRA, Camping World, whatever. It lives up to its agreements in motorsports, or is proud of its connection to motorsports, and let's talk." And apparently that was all 100% spontaneous, which I found to be crazy. As I was watching it play out, I go, this is a done deal. Like, this is something that's happened in the background, and now they're playing this out. But it turned out to be 100% spontaneous from all my sources, and something that's actually, conversations are being had, right? Conversations are taking place right now. So who knows what comes of that? Definitely an interesting thing. It'd be crazy. I mean, you talk about how much weirder does 2020 get than sponsorship negotiations taking place on Twitter. I don't really know what to make of it, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, and the uproar has been really interesting to see. The thing that I take away from all of it is that it's just, hey, thanks, man. Oh, it's all good. The thing that I like about it is that just people are talking, right? This is the most buzz and the most talk that I've seen regarding NHRA drag racing in a while. And I hate that it's surrounding something so negative, but I hope everybody realizes that we as a sport, I'm the first to say that drag racing continues on with or without the NHRA, right? But I'm telling you that the NHRA does a huge service for the sport of drag racing. If you look at, I mean, across the board, I'm telling you guys, I can identify, there are several very successful promoters in the sport of drag racing that put on one event, two events, three events, right? But when you start putting on 24 national events all across the United States in several major markets,
Big deal.
that's a whole other program, right? And we don't really give them the credit they deserve because, man, they execute that stuff at an extremely high level. I mean, you take any racer that's been to an NHRA national event and you take them anywhere else, the first thing they're going to tell you is, man, they sure, at the NHRA, they run on time. And if they say you're going to run at 1 p.m., you're going to run at 1 p.m., right? All these little things that the NHRA does so well that people sleep on, right? And if you look at the safety safari, the NHRA safety safari, that's the bar to which everybody else in drag racing measures their safety efforts, is against the NHRA safety safari, right? So they've driven the bus on so many of these rules and safety happenings that it's really, I can't say enough about the NHRA's role in the sport of drag racing and all these people that are so excited to see them fail or so excited to see them struggle. That's tough. I don't think they're totally deserving of it. I don't. Missteps along the way, absolutely. Who hasn't screwed up? Who hasn't made the wrong decision? But I do think that, by and large, they're doing their best. They're doing,
Monster pulled out of NASCAR, I guess. So yeah, that's. I mean, they ought to be on the phone with them.
Well, and it's the thing that I think we're going to find is in every business, there's a lesson here, right? So anybody that's in a business that, I mean, almost all businesses, right? Sales, you better have your funnel full, right? You better have a pipeline full of new leads, new conversations, be meeting new people, trying to grow your network because you don't want to get caught with your pants down like the NHRA is experiencing right now. Most of us that have been in business have experienced stuff like this ourselves. We had a really good gig and it's exciting. We're all on five, and then it goes away and it's, what do we do now? Well, while things were good, and I'm not saying you should be stockpiling money for a rainy day or whatever, but you have to be filling that funnel up. You have to be filling that pipeline up with new people, new leads. And that's something that I haven't seen a ton of in the sport of drag racing for quite a while, right? I mean, we haven't seen, a lot of these events are happening as the NHRA Nationals, the NHRA Southern Nationals, the NHRA, whatever, Nitro Nationals. We don't have as many of the O'Reillys and AutoZones and Advanced Auto Parts and whatever. We don't have as much of that. So we have to do some digging. We have to examine that stuff a little bit and try to, I wish the NHRA well. I personally believe the NHRA is massively valuable. I think it is a bargain for a major brand. It's a place where you're getting hardworking, money-spending, action-oriented fans. You're getting a group of fans that are do-it-yourselfers, that are brand loyal to a fault, right? I mean, I'm looking around and I was super surprised that I didn't see like a LeBron leaving Cleveland-esque dumping out of Cokes and dumping out of Diet Cokes all over social.
That's true.
Because I honestly thought that's what we were going to see happen, because this is a group of people, man, that ride for the brand by and large. We have some division in the ranks, no doubt, and we've kind of got a little bit of us versus them, but as a whole, we drag racers, this is a pretty tight-knit community, and we rally behind the people that rally behind us. And I'm not saying that Coca-Cola is going to feel this massive thing, but I'll tell you what, man, I'm not going to buy any. I'm out, right? And I know that I'm just one person, but you start talking about all the people that care about the sport of drag racing. I mean, whoever comes along next, if it's a soda company, for sure, we're going all in on whatever's next, even if it's bad. Like I said earlier, I don't love Mellow Yellow, but I drank the stuff and bought the stuff because I want to support the companies that supported us. Like when I would go to a gas station, no joke, I go to Bighorn right down the road here. I would literally go in there and I always buy Coke products, right? I mean, obviously my go-to is Wild Cherry Pepsi, but I would resist the temptation because I want to support the people that support us. So I think that exists a lot in our sport. We're very lucky to operate in this community, in my opinion, and many of us have benefited from that type of thing. So Dar Hawthorne's actually making a really good. This is going to. It should force the NHRA to examine some things, get out some blank sheets of paper, and start trying some new stuff. We've seen enough proof, in my opinion, enough evidence that we have too many national events. And I know this is very difficult. Those are conversations that I certainly wouldn't want to have. I would if I had to, but it is, I do think less is more. I'm experiencing it with my own businesses. It is hard to just, in this hyper busy world, and I'm saying hyper a lot, but man, this is a wild time, right? There's so much going on. Everybody's so busy and the expectation is so high. There's so much comparison, right? You're seeing all this stuff. You get on social media and you're like, oh man, Tom and Judy take their kids to the park every weekend. I better take my kids. I mean, there's so much pressure to do more that trying to squeeze in 24 major NHRA national events, I think is going to be tough. I don't know. I look at the participation issues that exist in the top categories: top fuel, funny car, pro stock motorcycle. That's remedied rather quickly with less races. Look no further than pro stock. We saw a class almost overnight revitalized by reducing the race schedule from 24 to 18 races. I think 16, 18 races would be God's plenty for the NHRA National Event Tour in 2021 and beyond. I definitely think some of those, you create some sort of lottery for one of the tracks or two of the tracks where it's a rotating thing. Obviously, you're going to have some people bummed out and you're going to have some people upset or whatever, but heavy is the head, right? It's the price of progress. And I think that's a great starting point and a fantastic observation from our buddy Dar Hawthorne there. So I love these 2-day races. I would really be able to get behind a Friday night session that's a standalone, like it's something that you try to promote, Nitro, Night of Fire, whatever. And then on Saturday, run 2 sessions or 3 sessions and then race them on Sunday. I love that idea. I tell you what, it's made going to Indy or going to any of these events, going to the Gators this weekend, it's just made it much more manageable, especially if you're trying to run a business, to be able to leave midway through the day or whatever on Friday and spend the weekend at the racetrack, be home Sunday night. It is just a big change, big step in the right direction. So, yeah, and Steve Gonzalez asked the question, do they really need 2 Vegas and 2 Charlotte races every year? I would argue they do not. I know that's probably a tough thing for those facilities that are expensive to run and expensive to operate, but maybe there's a way to just have a secondary. I've said for a long time that I feel like the NHRA needs a circus version of its show, like maybe a scaled down version of a show where it's 8 top fuel cars or whatever that they could bring into smaller venues. And maybe it's some sort of thrill show that you partner with those tracks so that they can put that date on their calendar. But if you've got those 4 wide facilities, you need to run 4 wide at those facilities. So that's my take on Charlotte and ZMAX. If you're going to go there, you need to run 4 wide because that's what makes those venues unique. You've got 4 lanes. You need to have cars in all 4 of them. Otherwise, it's weird. I'm not a fan of 4 wide racing. I really don't like it personally. I've said before that I think drag racing is romantic, and it's a mano-a-mano thing. It's important that it's a duel. It's these 2 people lining up to do battle on the drag strip. And I think it gets watered down when you extend it to 4 lanes. But as a sensory experience, as a sensory overload, 40,000 horsepower, and it's pretty cool. So I get that part of it. But yeah, Scott Klinger is saying that would be Match Racing West. I think that's a tool that could be used. I have long since had this vision for there to be, to use the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series type of thing. I've always felt like drag racing needed this. The NHRA needed kind of like a second tier thing that they took to smaller venues and to smaller tracks, maybe 8th mile tracks, some smaller facilities to try to generate new fans, to expose the sport to new people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because that would be, it's kind of like I know I draw a lot of comparisons to the UFC, but I just see some people that I think are doing it really well. They certainly have their shortcomings, but it's like the Dana White Contender Series. They have this smaller kind of scale deal where they introduce new talent and they discover new talent. And the idea is that eventually those guys that fight on those smaller shows end up in the UFC. And it would be super cool to see the NHRA roll out, maybe a reduced schedule, but 4-6 of these match racing type of stops where they bring in a couple of guys, maybe a couple of big names, a couple of new names, or maybe it's all new names. I mean, I think it'd be a fantastic thing if you had these guys going out there and cutting their teeth and learning how to race at a pro level and learning how to, run their stuff in a fashion that it's not spontaneously combusting. That's tough because so many of these teams are tasked with going out and testing at the U.S. Nationals, at the Gator Nationals, because they don't have the resources to go test a bunch elsewhere. So it's that's something that I really think the sport of drag racing could use right now. So, and honestly, going to Rongum's, I think that's how you say that name, his point, connecting with the masses, I think that's done through storytelling. If you look at what Street Outlaws, Pilgrim Studios, Discovery Channel have done, is they've consistently told the stories of these relatable men and women, and they've allowed America and the world, for that matter, to fall in love with these guys or fall into hate with these guys, right? They've started hating them because there's willing dance partners here too, because the cast of the Street Outlaws deserve credit for being willing to be themselves and to put their foot in their mouth or whatever and say what they think and live with the consequences. That's something that they don't get the credit they deserve for. Because if you compare and contrast that to like the NHRA and a top end interview, by and large, our pro level racers are afraid to say anything other than their sponsor's name and give a quick shout out to God. Make sure they cover all their bases, right?
I never understood that, why they didn't have pieces on them, like background pieces, followed them home. Like they do it in
every other sport.
And,
every other sport for that matter. I mean, I feel like I know LeBron's mom. Like the story's been told so many times, right? But you know what I'm saying? Like it's just one time after another, after another, after another. But that's what it takes. Repetitive storytelling. I mean, you just have to continue to tell that story. And when I look at Nhra, man, I see a world of incredible stories, man. I see regular people. I see people that are, blue collar, hardworking, that are relatable, that have construction businesses, right? Or have an auto repair shop. Like Tim Wilkerson, based out of Springfield, Illinois, has an auto repair shop. I mean, he runs his Nitro Funny Car race team out of the back of his repair shop. Do you know how many men and women roll through the gates of an NHRA national event that work at repair shops or own their own or have a towing service or have a small auto parts store or a machine shop? That's their guy, right? But I don't think
don't know it.
They don't know it.
They don't know it,
right? Yeah. Because God bless everybody's best effort. I'm not trying to bag on anybody, but we're so busy talking about 526 cubic inch Hemis and billet cylinder heads and 70 disc clutches and timers. We're so busy preaching to the choir that we're not speaking that universal language of storytelling, right? I mean, we've got to get as excited about a 904 60 foot, that, right? We get all excited about that, or a 330 mile an hour trap speed. We got to get as excited about the fact that this guy is a father of 3, right? And owns his own business, has Jason Scruggs. How many people in the motorsports world are involved in farming, right? Tons of them, right? And Jason Scruggs is a cotton farmer from Mississippi, right? He's got a John Deere dealership. He rides a John. I mean, there's so many ways to connect to people to that guy. And it's funny, like if you ask, I use my wife as an example all the time. Alicia, happy birthday to her. Her birthday was Monday. Interestingly, mine's on Sunday, if you guys want to ship presents. But the thing that you have to be willing to connect those people and create those emotional connections. Like Alicia, she's not that big of a fan of drag racing, but she always is excited to watch the people she knows, right? So she's not going to watch it for the 60-foot times or the record-setting ETs, but she's close with Erica Enders. So every time Erica races, she's following along with Erica. She doesn't even know who else is in the class, really. But she's going to follow Erica because she knows Erica, right? She knows Erica's story. She relates or admires it or whatever. And that's what we need more of in the sport of drag racing, is we need to be telling these stories. I point to Sean Langdon, J.R. Todd. Those two specifically. There are others, Leah Pritchett. There are a slew of them. But Sean Langdon, just as an example, here's a kid. He's my age. He's not a kid. But here's a guy that started out racing junior dragsters, right? Started out in our little league, drag racing's little league, started out in junior dragsters, moved up to bracket racing, started super comp racing, moved into the top alcohol ranks, right? Bounced around, did bracket racing, big money bracket racing, whatever. Eventually found himself in a top fuel dragster, eventually found himself winning an NHRA world championship. And here's a guy that's a product of our system. It's literally nothing could be for me more exciting, man. I mean, couldn't you? Sean Langdon should have a bazillion fans, but we're not effectively telling that story, right? We're not constantly reminding people that this is a guy out here going 330 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds, racing the quickest and fastest cars in the world, and he's just like you. He rode to the racetrack with his parents in his junior dragster in the back of a truck backwards, with the front end hanging out. He's done all those things, and we're not doing a good enough job of telling those stories because, in my opinion, we're too busy preaching to the choir. The people that care about clutch discs, the people that care about counterweight and 60-foot times and all that, they're coming no matter what. Don't get me wrong. It's great to feed them. It's great to give them something to chew on from time to time. But the majority of our messaging, in my opinion, needs to speak to bringing new fans in, speak to relatable terms, because let's face it, guys, most of us are so far removed from going 300 miles per hour in a door car, or excuse me, in a top fuel dragster, or 250 miles an hour in a door slammer. We're so far removed from that if that's all if that's the tip of your spear, it's falling flat, man. It's not a relatable thing. But the fact that it's a guy that hangs drywall, right? Or has a business hanging drywall that's racing this pro mod or whatever, that is so important, man, because that's what connects people to them. That's what connects, it piques people's curiosity. And I honestly think that that's a big part of the magic of Street Outlaws. Those guys look like regular dudes. They have jobs. They install air conditioning units, right? They change oil. They build fence. They do so many things that people in our world do every day that, man, it's easy to cheer for them because they're just like me, And they also have the advantage that I believe their cars still look like cars. They kind of look attainable, right? I mean, you look at what's his name? Chuck, the one that doesn't like me, Chuck Seitzinger. He's got that back half Mustang. Pretty much anybody. I mean, that's an attainable hot rod.
Right.
I mean, that's not a Big Chief's Crow. That's not a state-of-the-art Jerry Bickle, Rick Jones built, McCain's built pro mod. It's not, right? These things are backyard builds by and large. They're built in shops and basements or whatever.
That's why Farm Truck had so many. And
agreed.
I mean, everybody loved that old truck,
Yeah, man. I mean, and I think that's kind of a secret weapon that the Street Outlaws have. But I really point to those aforementioned points for pro mod, radial tire racing. They still look like cars, right? It's still the drivers on the left-hand side. They've got doors. They sit right. They look like Hot Wheels. They still look like cars, and I think that's really important. So,
for sure.
The long of this is that NHRA, as we know it, is dead. Needs to change. I don't think the NHRA is dead, but I definitely think now's the time to change. I definitely think, man, I'm telling you, like the U.S. Nationals, there was 890 cars there. 891. I know I've beat that drum a lot the last few weeks, but I can't say it can't be said enough. You could say they're dead all you want, but it's the strongest program going. It's where everybody wants to be. Mark my words, this weekend at the Gator Nationals, there'll be racers everywhere. All this on the internet, right? All this hubbub, and they'll be packed. Thanks. I did forget to drink my coffee.
I couldn't tell.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
I thought I was kind of being.
Yeah.
I thought I was kind of being calm. Dar Hawthorne delivering the goods here yet again. NHRA founder Wally Parks once famously said, "The cars are the stars." Yeah, and that is a true statement, man, and it's absolutely wrong. Nothing could be further. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's the cars are secondary, and this has been one of the issues that I get so frustrated with. Is the cars change, right? I mean, there have been so many iconic hot rods, and it's like a double threat. When you get someone that's like a big star, let's use Stevie Jackson as an example, right? If the cars were the stars, Stevie Fast would have immediately become irrelevant after that Shadow Mustang went flying through the sky down in Valdosta, Georgia a couple of years ago, right?
Yep.
If it was all about the car, and now granted, he had a connection to that car. People had fallen in love with that car. It was part of the program, part of the mystique. But he was able to carry that on because people love Stevie. They love that personality. I think they love that balls to the wall, crush their throat, step on their throat mentality, win at all costs, run the rods out of it, more timing, full boost. They love that mentality, man. And that mentality, in my opinion, and that do-it-yourself nature, regular guy, working dude, drove a tool truck. People have fallen in love with the character and that is Stevie Fast Jackson, and I don't feel the car has anything to do with it. I really don't. There are moments. Big Chief and the Crow, I think, is another one. Murder Nova and his Nova, another one. There are examples of when it's like this triple threat. It's this thing of it ticks all the boxes. But I don't think I truly believe the cars are not the stars, man. The cars are not the stars. And it's true, Steve Gonzalez, you cannot relay the nitro sensory overload on TV. It's been a big issue that I feel the Fox people, ESPN before them have tried with the little decibel thing and trying to find some way to replicate that experience. And there's just drag racing is by and large a live event. I think if we injected a new flavor, a new production into it, I think it could be done in a way that was enticing, but it's very difficult to do like a traditional event coverage type of show with our sport, in my opinion, because to the untrained eye, we look like people driving in a straight line, right? I mean, if you turn on, I've said this before, but like if you look at, if Travis Pastrana jumps on a 450 dirt bike and does a backflip, right? That looks difficult. It looks like something I don't want to try. Like, I'm not sure there are very many people that could do that, right?
I can.
Right, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But drag racing, on the other hand, to the untrained eye, you turn it on and it looks like people are driving in a straight line. And that's why we're not doing a good enough job telling our story. We're not talking about the complexities, the nuances, the variables, all the different. There are so many ways to lose a drag race. And I think the sport, I believe this to be the great American motorsport. I truly believe it. The best part, the most exciting part of any NASCAR race, the drag race to the finish line, right? Coming out of that final turn, headed towards a checkered flag, 2 wide, 4 wide, whatever it is. That is the most exciting moment of any drag race. And you can't tell me that our sport's too short. I've heard this argument before. Oh, it just happens too fast. It's never going to be popular because it's over too quick. Well, what about the rodeo?
Yeah.
PBR seems to be doing pretty well. Best case scenario, the deal lasts 8 seconds.
Look how they introduced
Best case scenario.
Their cowboys, though, when they come out.
Absolutely,
Pyros
man. These guys
off.
are treated like gods.
Yep.
Right? I mean, those dudes that ride those bulls are treated like superhumans. People that, it starts with that, man. Acting, playing the part, acting as if, I've said before that I think we need to ramp up the theatrics of nitro racing. I'd be making these guys wear an EKG or whatever, all them sensors on their chest. I'd have a freaking a sensor on their brain. I'd have them wearing an oxygen mask. Yeah, I would have medical staff down on the starting line checking them out before they get in the car. I mean, because the balls it takes to drive one of those cars, we don't tell that story adequately. We don't talk about the courage that it takes to do that stuff, right? It looks easy. It looks like something that anybody could do. But it takes an insane amount of courage. Those things blow up more often than not, sometimes while sitting still. Like, you don't got to be going 300 miles an hour to get hurt by a top fuel car, right? It can be idling and like smoke your family. They're very, very dangerous. And we don't do a great job of demonstrating that danger. And I could make a pretty good argument, to be honest, for everybody on the starting line wearing fire suits and helmets. I've thought a lot about that. I've thought before when I would see somebody's shirt get sucked off by a car or get run over, I've thought get burnt or whatever, that I'm not so sure that everybody on the starting line shouldn't be wearing like a basic fire suit just to make it look dangerous, just to make it look, just to add to the visuals of it, the optics. There I go. New drinking game.
Yep.
Right.
I did. I put it in earlier.
Don't you think that's true? That it could just look more severe? Right. I mean, because think about the PBR. If we go back to the pro bull riding example, dude, those things it's dimly lit and it's pyro and it's music and it's spotlights and stuff. Those are all important things, man. It's as important as the bulls and the bull riders. That production is so importantly, man. Yeah, Gary Brown, great pivot here. Let's talk a little bit about the shakedown. Man,
records,
incredible. I should have done this. I should have done some prior research, to be totally honest, but. I was wondering if we pulled up what the ETs were from the shakedown last year to Donald's race, right? Like, so what, how much did everybody pick up from VMP last year, the shakedown, to the Sweet 16 ET wise? Like Marcus Burt, what did he run it? Do you know off the top of your head? Does anybody in the comments know? I mean, I'm anxious to see, because I think we're going to see a 340 something happen in Valdosta next month. There's no doubt in my mind that we're going to see a 340 run, a 349 out of somebody if the air's there, which it likely will be middle October, Valdosta, Georgia. We're going to be below sea level. It's going to be Nate Hansen saying it looks like a 10th. Yeah. So if that's the case, we could see, and I don't expect anybody to go 340, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a 347 or a 348. I wouldn't be shocked at all. It looks to me like it's there. And wow, absolutely incredible job by everybody involved. And I really want to point out that I was blown away and just taken aback that this stuff may not get noticed by everybody, but the live videos from Tyler, I thought he did a great job. The tears, the enthusiasm, that is so important, man. And everybody feels it. That starts at the top and it trickles down. Every racer there, they feel that. It is undeniable, and it is so important. I was super proud, and I felt the event, the way it played out and the way that it happened, et cetera, was a direct reflection of the energy and enthusiasm that Tyler Crossnow, the promoter of the event, had for what was happening. You could feel it in every part of it, and I was massively impressed, man. For me, one of the coolest things of the weekend was seeing Jim Halsey go 360. I was really hoping to see a Pro Mod Nitrous car encroach on the Nitrous world record. We're making progress, but that was a ton of incredible runs for Nitrous cars, a bunch of bottom 360s. Jay Cox went 361. Lizzie went bottom 60s. Tommy went, just an incredible. We had Keith Haney set a career best, go 366. I thought that was incredible for the second race out. on a freshly repaired hot rod. Just that nitrous class. I mean, those nitrous cars really showed out. That video that we posted of Jim Halsey going 360 with a 5 on the Drag Illustrated page has over 1 million views. Over 1 million views.
Crazy.
And just it was crazy watching the record just drop in RVW was something special. The notion that David Reese and Stevie Jackson had matched ETs, I thought that was super impressive. And if you think about the story, I've known the Reese brothers since the early 2000s. I think I met David Reese in 2005. Yeah. So mid 2000s, excuse me. And these guys have been working on cars. They're do-it-yourselfers. They've done it their way. They fought the uphill battle of being in business for yourself. And I just couldn't be happier to see David Reese having the success that he is having, man. Those are some hard working, hard racing guys, and they are having some success. I mean, that is a hot rod, right? I mean, plus it's flat red. Like I love that. It's a good looking son of a gun, man. And they've got a really solid program. I always love when you see that. That's some of that ingenuity that we talk about, right? Where they're played to the rules. They've got a super lightweight car, a small block with a screw blower. This isn't a combination that we should be sleeping on, right? A lot of door slammer history has been made with a small block, a 400 small block and a screw blower. Look at Jason Scruggs, look at Gene Hector, right? They did some world beating with that combination for a long time. So I'm not totally shocked to see this billet version of that having a lot of success in 2020. But I'm really happy for those guys. I think that RVW put on a hell of a show this past weekend. I thought the Pro Mod show was spectacular. I have a video that's going to come out tomorrow talking about this, but man, I look at that Pro Mod category there at the shakedown, and I see PDRA, Pro Nitrous, and Pro Boost combined. And I think that could be such a badass deal for the sport of drag racing. And I think that if they do that, it could be a difference maker. It could be an absolute difference maker. So I really hope that if we speaking of blank sheets of paper, speaking of changes that could be potentially made this off season, I would absolutely love to see the PDRA combine those classes. I mean, I don't know that it's completely known or seen, but they ran those cars together with their PDRA and Pro Nitrous rules. No changes. They just ran them together. So I would love to see the PDRA do that. I think we saw a sneak peek of the magic that it could be. And we would basically have what we had this past weekend 6-8 times a year. And I think it would be a fantastic thing for the sport of drag racing. And I really hope we see that in the future. I do agree, Tubby Polston, that Pro 275 is really on the come up. I think that's going to be the class for quite a while, man. And I'm anxious to see how. I mean, I think they're going to have a hell of a show down there in Valdosta, man. But I do get concerned when I see there's already Pro Mods over there. And I really want to see one of these classes, kind of stick to cars that are cars or started out as cars. I think that'd be a fantastic thing.
For sure.
So.
The Outlaw Streetcar reunion is going to move to
Virginia. Man. To see Tyler get all choked up in that live, it was awesome. And I get it. I totally relate to that, man. These events become an extension of yourself, of your person. And to fight through what Tyler fought through last year, timing system issues, some stuff that I believe was out of his control. I'm excited for him to see that event continue on. I think it takes some balls to do that. I really do. I think it takes some real courage and determination, some perseverance that a lot of people maybe don't understand, that I appreciate a lot. And I have a lot of respect for Tyler. I really do. I think he is that's going to be a 2021 at VMP. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with their NHRA national event? I have to assume they're going to get that back, or at least be in the discussion. So, in 2021, you're looking at two major independent events, the Shakedown, the Outlaw Streetcar Reunion in the spring, their NHRA national event, a couple of PDRA stops. I mean, that's going to be a barn burner for them next year. So, yeah, man, wild times.
Read this.
I got the calculation back in my feet.
Circulation.
Circulation back. I had my. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's a fact, man. It's a whole other deal, and that's a full blown conversation maybe for another day. But man, those tracks are prepped. What would your thoughts be on making the RBW and Pro 275 competitors have a wheel width max? Brian is basically talking about the practice of running these 315 series radial tires and 275 series radial tires on really, really, really wide wheels. Man, it's just racers' desire. We can't help ourselves, right? We just ruin everything. Right? I mean, racers ruin everything. It's a group of people that are habitual line steppers, just continue to toe over the line and toe over the line and toe over the line. And I just think that's unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast. I don't know a really effective way. If there was one, I think it would have turned out by now to prevent some of that. Obviously, just setting rules that protect racers from themselves, I think is really important. Enforcing those rules and being willing to write new ones or change rules when needed, that's super important, man. But it's tough because nobody wants to be that guy. That's such I mean, look at what John Sears is going through with the controversy that constantly surrounds X275 racing. That is a tough position to be in, but it's super critical, man. It's a super important thing to have somebody that is willing to do what needs to be done, make tough decisions, live with the consequences. It's a tough thing, man. How fast is X275 going to get 4.0s next? I would say so. I would say so. I don't think it would appear that they're making some efforts to slow things down or whatever, but it's these things, it just happens so fast, right? I mean, I just don't think we fully understand Brian's saying, I fully understand that, but it destroys the mystique of small tire racing when you stretch a 315 series tire over a 15-inch wide wheel, in essence making it a 14-inch wide radial tire. Yeah, I mean, but this is, if in all fairness, 10.5Ws, 33 10.5Ws, they're not 10.5 inches wide, right? So it's been that way. It's been a deal for a long time. I don't know that anybody's out there measuring them. You know what I mean? I would tell you that in my personal opinion, to the casual fan, them tires still look pretty small to me. If you roll a 315 series radial out there and roll it up next to a 34-17, it looks small. It looks small. So it's still, in my opinion, going as fast as these guys are going on that tire is massively impressive. It's crazy because those things are small. I'm telling you, dude. I mean, you roll a 34-5-17 out next to a 315 radial tire, and it looks tiny. It looks tiny. I'm trying to scroll through some of these quotes, buddy, or these comments. There's just two of them here.
There you go.
What do you think about Steve Matusik running an elite-powered ProCharge Pro Mod Camaro in Gainesville? I think it's been a Herculean effort for that whole crew, and I hated to see that happen to Steve. They roll into the NHRA US Nationals, the biggest drag race on the planet Earth. They bust out this brand new wrap on the car, beautiful Mustang, got a Tequila Commissario on the side of the car, brand new sponsor. Shout out to my buddy Fran Vendenzio. One of the main guys at Tequila Commissario. They show up and make a handful of really good runs. It would have appeared that they had a contending hot rod, right? They were in the 570s. They were there, and unfortunate accident, car got on its lid and was tore up pretty good. And I think it speaks to Steve Matusik personally as a racer. Again, the courage, the intestinal fortitude that is required to do this stuff. I think that those are the type of happenings that a lot of times send people into retirement, send people into bass boats, right, and other hobbies. And these cars are so fast and so unpredictable at this point. I just thought it was really, really cool to see that group rally. Justin Elks, the team, Mike, everybody involved at Modern Racing, Mooresville, North Carolina, jumping into action to get another Elite Motorsports Pro Mod ready for Steve at the Gator Nationals this weekend. So it's going to be interesting. I think that they were one of the last turbo cars. If you're paying close attention, there's not a lot of turbo cars out there right now. I think there were a couple in Indy, which is so weird because Murder Tundra, I mean, don't you remember just a few short years ago, we thought every car was going to be a turbo car?
Absolutely, yeah.
And here we are a couple years later, and there's two. There's two left. Now we're down to one.
It's crazy how fast it all changes, you know?
Yeah, it is, right? And the NHRA has certainly succeeded in slowing that turbocharged combination down, and we're going to see Matusik and Elks dive into the pro-charged Camaro. This is the car formerly campaigned by Danny Rowe. It had a Root-style supercharged Hemi in it. Previously, Elite Motorsports bought that car, swapped it over to a pro-charged Hemi. If you remember back at the Drag Illustrated World Door Slammer Nationals presented by C-Tech Manufacturing, Matusik was at that event. Justin Elks calling the shot on that hot rod in that pro-charged car. They went way down in the 570s early, one of the first couple of passes on the car. I imagine there'll be a player in Gainesville immediately, likely off the trailer, be a player. And what will be really telling is that if they ever go back to the turbo combination, and and I don't think they will. That's just my personal opinion. I think if they go out, seeing what we're seeing right now from Belushi, all these pro-charged cars that are flying, I just don't think there's any chance that we see Matusik and company return to the turbo car. Maybe they do, but I'm not totally sure. So, but I'm super excited for them. They've got the cars great looking. I believe it's in the process of getting wrapped right now, or maybe yesterday. Got that Tequila Commissario branding on the side of it, and I'm excited to see him return to action. So that's definitely not the way you want to see anybody leave the sport of drag racing. So I'm glad Steve's going to jump back in and give it another go.
For sure. He's a great guy.
What else do we got? Nate, resend me your email. I don't think I got it. The way to leave racing with Lewis Mefford is correct. The way to leave racing with $1 million is that you start with 100. There's no doubt about it. Yep, that's no doubt about it. Sam Smith, it's funny that you mentioned that. My dad keeps saying that. He is just completely convinced that the NHRA, the PDRA need to be calling out street outlaws at every turn. He's just completely convinced that we need to have freaking Lizzie Musey blow the doors off of Big Chief or whatever. Lizzie's a bad example because she's racing over there right now. Who else? Stevie Jackson or somebody.
They used to do that, though. I mean, Donald Long used to do it all the time and try to call him out. And they used to come.
And it worked.
They used to come to a few races. Daddy Dave, Sean, Big Chief. Was there any other ones that came? But they were racing.
Kyle, what's his name?
I don't know.
Gosh dang it. Black Camaro. The Shocker.
Oh, yeah.
Dating Lizzie.
Kyle Kelly, yeah.
Kyle Kelly. Kai Kelly. Shit. Kai Kelly. He was there. I mean,
but they were all racing radio over there for a while, and they were doing good.
Yeah, man. I was super surprised. I mean, super impressed with how well Big Chief and Murder Nova were able to run on radials. I think they both had pretty impressive showings down there at Lights Out 7.
Sean, man, that was out of it a couple times.
Yes,
I mean,
several times. They got it was cool to see them there. And I do think that if booking them in or somebody from that whole scene to come to some of these PDRA races, and I mean, it's just tough because they're going to get smashed by and large. And you got to make it to where they're not just going to come in and get embarrassed, because I don't think it's not in their benefit to come in and not be competitive, right? It doesn't behoove them at all. That paycheck's probably not going to be enough to come in and make 3 passes and get crushed, So it would be cool to find a way to make that to put some sort of promotional program together that would be mutually beneficial or whatever. But yeah, I don't know which one of the Street Outlaws would be willing. Whenever it was cool there for a while, Kai Kelly was bringing his Shocker Camaro to PDRA races. I think that was last year, maybe the year before, and he was doing some testing and some grudge racing or whatever. But I think that was a really good thing for the PDRA, just to steal a little bit of their shine. I don't think you've got to be bashful about that, man. They're the talk of town, and if you can bring them in and you can kind of piggyback on their success, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, and if you can bait them into some sort of public war of words and get them out to run some of your top guys, by all means, because I don't think it's going to end well for, I mean, you're talking about pro level drag racers, and that's just, it's not lost on me. It's lost on some people, but you start talking about guys that do this stuff for a living, have equipment, have pro level help. It is an absolute difference maker. There's a ton of those guys that are extremely good racers. And that's a conversation that Pat Musey and I have had off the record several times, is he tips his cap to all those, the guys that race on No Prep Kings, the guys that race on Street Outlaws. He's told me multiple times, like, hey man, there's some real deal racers out here. But yeah, we got to get, if we could get some of those guys out to a PDRA race, to an NMCA race, whatever, I think it would be a good thing. Yeah, Douglas, if you remember a couple of years ago, Big Chief turned up, ran Pro Mod at the U.S. Nationals. I was actually super proud of the whole deal because they kind of bent their rules to let him in. It had a small block Pontiac in it with twin turbos, and there was really no rules, I don't believe, that were really written for that car to be legal, but they stuck him in there and benefited from it in a big way, man. I mean, I watched as it unfolded, and there were people lined up all weekend long at
I remember that.
Big Chief's, little enclosed car trailer and a dually, right? I mean, he's pitted in amongst a bunch of tractor trailers and toter homes and stackers, and he's there with a little enclosed car trailer bumping 3.6 Mafia as loud as it'll go, and just 100% being himself, man. And that's, again, don't lose sight of that. What those guys are doing so effectively is they're being their authentic selves, and they're letting the chips fall where they may. Some people love them, some people hate them, some people are indifferent, but most are jealous. But I mean, that is absolutely a real thing, that those guys are putting themselves out there and they're living with the consequences, man. So let's talk about NHRA dropping the payout for the 2020 remaining races. I've talked a little bit about this, Scott. You can check out some of the videos on our YouTube channel or on the Drag Illustrated Facebook page. I'll just briefly kind of recap my opinion on this. I honestly think that this was information that should have never been able to be seen by the public. I really think that this did not do any sort of service for the sport of drag racing. That is information that we should have, been playing closer to the vest. That's not the type of information that we want on the front page of pages all over newspapers, or news websites. We don't want it all over social media. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. I think the NHRA is tasked now with putting an end date on that program. I think that they need to make it abundantly clear that these are the purses for the remainder of the series or the season, that we've been beaten up by COVID. We're trying to, ensure a long future. So let's put an expiration date on those purses. I think it needs to be explicit that this is the purse for the remainder of 2020. In 2021, we return to 50,000 to win and top fuel or whatever, some percentage of it needs to be trending back the right way, in my opinion, sooner rather than later. And again, I think we got to learn from this and work on communicating with racers in a more effective fashion, whether that's Zoom calls, whether that's face-to-face meetups and annual gathering. I don't know, but I know that sending out mass emails with really, really, really sensitive information is not the program. That's absolutely not the program. Yes, Doug, I will see you at the Gator Nationals. What's going on, John Miller?
Got a busy few weeks coming up, don't you? Or like,
man,
something like that.
Yes, there's like a 7-week stretch here, which is going to be an absolute barn burner. There's NHRA races coming in hot and heavy, one after another. The PDRA, we got 2 back-to-back races at Donald Long's Sweet 16 first, and then the next weekend, No Mercy, right? So 10 days of duck, as he's calling it, at South Georgia Motorsports Park. Very much looking forward to going down there. being a part of that deal, taking in the sights and sounds and scenes of the biggest small tire race on the planet Earth. That Sweet 16 is especially unique. I think it's a fun race to be a part of. It's got this, if you haven't been there, it's unique in that it just has, for all you street racing aficionados or street outlaws, no prep guys, it has that kind of air to it. Like you feel like you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing because there's just not very many people there. It feels exclusive. If it was happening in the middle of the night, hell, it'd be a street race. You know what I mean? Like that's really how it feels. It feels like a parking lot full of the baddest dudes in the area, and we're all coming out here to do battle on this strip of concrete in South Georgia. It's a pretty badass scene.
Pretty good parties there too.
Yeah, man. They just everybody, right? I mean, it's a good time event. So I'm very much looking forward to it. The very next weekend, No Mercy. I think obviously both of these events are going to be absolute barn burners. Donald Long knows how to do it, knows how to throw a party, and they will be.
Did you see Big Country calling out Donald Long all weekend on Facebook? I
did over the track prep and stuff.
Yeah, right.
Really, yeah. Really. I mean, I will say that I do. I know Big Country and all that. That's all good natured stuff. But man, I love the records. I do. And I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but I just feel like we get such laser focus on the record runs
instead of going rounds
that we just gloss over how hard it is to string four wins together, to go rounds on race day. And I wish we looked at the success of these racers and when they're able to go rounds and keep that thing running. It's so hard, man. I've said it before that it's hard to win 4 games of tic-tac-toe in a row, let alone 4 drag races in a row in a 3, 4, 5,000 horsepower door slammer when you've got, the best guys in the world racing against you. And it's just, I wish we could create that kind of, I wish people had that kind of admiration and respect and fanfare around winning, just winning, the act of winning, right? Like the act of winning a drag race, going around so hard. And I just don't think we celebrate it the same way we celebrate a 350, right? I mean, or some record setting run. And I don't know, I've searched high and low for, some sort of analogy or some sort of comparison thing that I could say or that I could delve into, but it's tough. Drag racing is unique in that, I believe, that it's just so much about, because if you look at just NASCAR, and this may be a stretch, but I don't even know what's an average lap time. Most of the time, you don't know how fast the cars are going, right? It's something they talk about every once in a while. You know what I mean? But nobody, it's like, it would be like someone celebrating the quickest ever lap at Bristol instead of who won the race.
Right.
Like, well, man, who's somebody that races NASCAR? What's this guy? Bubba Wallace won the race or whatever, but I don't know. Who's someone else that races NASCAR? Carl Edwards ran a 17.66 second lap time. You know what I mean? It just, I'm not into it, man. I get it. And I know how much it means. I've been there. I know what it's like. I've experienced it. Like, I've got because it's drag racers. We really speak that language. I meet guys and the first thing they tell me typically is, hey, my name's Sam Smith. I've got the fastest purple stock suspension, small tire, naturally aspirated, stick shift, single disc clutch having Mustang on the planet Earth. Right? It's how we identify ourselves is by this record that we own or this performance mark that we are somehow attached to. And it's great because it is part of the song and dance of drag racing. But I do wish that we would celebrate our winners the same way we celebrate our record holders, man. So
yeah, see, I like this, what Scott said. Those that have won a drag race know the crowd is almost already gone. And that's definitely true at a lot of times at Ducks races it's so late or it's late on Sunday night or whatever, that it is pretty empty. Where Saturday night was packed.
And it's crazy, man, because if you've been involved, I've talked about this before, and it's one of my favorite things to talk about, the ride down the return road. If you've ever, I'm getting goosebumps. Look at that. Real. if you've ever been there, if you've ever been a part of that, it's a euphoric. I mean, I've still got goosebumps. There's a, I do. I mean,
Oh
few
my
people understand what it's like to have it line up, right? So many things have to go right to win that race. And I literally, I felt like I was 600 years old. I was hanging out in the elite. I will conclude the show with a little story about the U.S. Nationals. Sunday night, I found myself at dinner after the U.S. Nationals with Royce Freeman Sr., right? Richard Freeman's dad. I think the world of Royce Sr. He just celebrated a birthday. He's a wonderful human being, great guy. And we were sitting there. He goes, "What do you think about today?" And of course, Erica Enders had won the U.S. Nationals, right? It was a huge, huge deal. Her second time winning the U.S. Nationals, a big kind of story of redemption for Erica, having lost in the final last year. So she comes back a year later, wins the race, does it. And she did so much. She did exactly what she needed to do in the final, cut a killer light, all this stuff. It was an incredible story, a storybook weekend, if you will. And I was sitting there at dinner with Royce Sr., and I told him, I said, "Man, I just hope everybody here, everybody that was involved with that, really understands the significance of it, right? And how few people get to experience this, and how many people in our sport have spent tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars trying to win Indy. And so few people get to do it." And I remember standing in the pit area on Sunday afternoon after Erica had won, and I looked around and I see all these young people. And I like to think I'm young, but I'm not as young as I once was. And I look around at all these like 20, 25-year-olds, and I'm looking around at smiles and cheerses, and I'm thinking to myself, I hope they really know. I hope they really understand how many people, friends of mine, family members of mine, who have spent fortunes and countless hours and endured countless heartaches and setbacks and trials and tribulations trying to win a drag race, right? Win one at their local racetrack, win trophy, right? Win the high school drags. And to win Indy in pro stock, so few people get to experience that. And that's why I think I'm so hung up on when people are able to string 3-4 round wins together in a row. I just have so much respect for it, because I know how hard that is, how difficult that is to do, to on this day, in this moment, hit it just right every time, right? You need a little bit of luck. You need a little bit of sunshine. And it's winning a drag race is a tough deal, man. And so many of us have spent years and years and years losing, getting our teeth kicked in or whatever, that whenever you finally have that breakthrough moment, it's such a big deal, right? And I can't really say enough about it, man. That ride down the return road after you've turned on the wind light, going down there to pick up your driver, whether it's your dad, your brother, your uncle, your dear friend, your little sister, whatever the case may be, that's just such a special happening that so few people get to experience that, maybe that's why there's not, because it's such an experience that's reserved for so few people. But it's an incredible thing, man. And it's just, I can't say enough about it, man. We'll talk for weeks about who went this 421 for the first time, or 300, or whatever the mark is. But man, it's really the people in this sport that are able to consistently turn on wind lights that inspire me, because I know how hard that is to do. And I'm not saying that it's easy to set records at all. And it's when guys do both, like the Stevie Jacksons of the world, right? When they're able to go out and string 3-4 round wins together and crush the record, or set, some sort of milestone performance. Those are really special moments, man. The guys but it's just winners. It's a different breed, man. It is. I mean, you ask anybody that's done a lot of it, and they will tell you that somewhere along the way they had to learn to do it. They had to learn to win, right? Because it's a different approach. It's a different approach. So anyways, I find it very interesting personally.
For sure. All right,
Kyle
buddy.
Lang, yeah, man, he's making a good point there. The records that I think mean something are like Kenny Burnsie. Those huge barriers, no doubt, right? The first 300, first 200, first 350, whatever happens next, right? Those are definitely important marks for our sport, man. But let's celebrate our winners every bit as much as our record setters.
I think that's probably, let's call
That'll
her.
do it, brother. Thanks a bunch. I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, click like, click share, spread the good word of drag racing. I truly believe this is the great American motorsport, and it is without question that it's the people. It is racers that have carried this sport to the point it is today, 7 decades strong. And remember, don't lose sight of the fact they're not going to bulldoze all these drag strips, right? The sport of drag racing is strong. I would argue stronger than it has ever been. Car culture is alive and well. Somehow, some way, it's become fashionable again to have a hot rod. Dodge is producing 500, 600, 700 horsepower factory cars. Performance cars are a thing again. I mean, it's a fantastic moment in time. We'll get through this COVID crap. We'll be on the other side of it in no time. And don't lose sight of the fact that the sport of drag racing, I mean, they're doing it on TV. We got burnouts happening on Discovery Channel 2-3 times a week. We got automotive content everywhere we look. Cletus McFarland, a drag racer, is got one of the biggest YouTube channels in existence. We're doing a lot of good things are happening in the sport of drag racing right now, so don't lose sight of it. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.
Later.